Blog Talk Radio. This is Dare to be Authentic Talk Radio Worldwide with relationship coach, life coach, and author Mari Mitchell, broadcasting live from Southern California.
Hi, and welcome to Dare to be Authentic Radio. I'm your host, Mari Mitchell, and it's great for you to be here with us today. We have a special guest. Her name is Marilyn Redmond, and she's going to talk about how she was able to overcome domestic violence, trauma, and addiction. She was able to find what she calls a spiritual path out of her hell and into heaven on earth. Marilyn is a spiritual counselor, a regression therapist. She gives readings, teaches, speaks, and is an artist and writer. Her newest book is called Finding Reality Beyond Fear. Welcome to the show, Marilyn. It's great to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is just an honor to be on your show, and I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, thanks so much. So let's talk about a little bit about your story of how you came to do what you currently do now.
Well, my life has really been a very traumatic, stressful life. I did not know growing up how stressed it was. I was raised in domestic violence, and there was a lot of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So I was used to that kind of life, and I didn't know there was a different way. The little kids in Sunday school would have wonderful things going on with them, and I'd just say, oh, well, it's not going to happen to me. That's where I came from. And then through marrying what I was used to, I married into domestic violence with more abuse, of what I mentioned. And we came to a point in our marriage at 30 years where he was trying to kill me and I was trying suicide to get out of the trauma, and the drama was so bad that I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I didn't have any answers, and I didn't know what to do. I was just totally hopeless and helpless and clueless. So one thing led to another. We had a vacation up in Canada, and coming home from that trip back into the States, he got very, very angry, and I got very, very scared because he was driving like a maniac and crossing the center line. We had almost 3 head-on collisions, and I prayed from my heart. I had gone to church all my life for 50 years, but it was always out of praying from a hymnal. And that night I said, God, please help me. I really don't want to die. And within minutes I was off. He was driving off the road, parked, and we were out of harm's way. And to make a long story short, I ended up in treatment for alcoholism, and the doctor had given me Valium, and I found out Valium was the ultra-dry martini, and 1 pill, 1 drink is 6 times the effect, and he was in the same situation. And we ended up in a spiritual program. Treatment taught me how to live my life in spiritual principles rather than religious dogma. Because I'd gone to church, and, of course, that hadn't stopped all the problems that were going on. It was just getting worse, actually. So when I got to treatment, I finally got some answers of how to do it differently. And thank you for that opportunity, or I wouldn't be here today.
Wow, that's quite a story, and I'm so thankful that you did find your way. I love the part about that you prayed and he pulled off the road. So at that point, you had a direct connection with God, and you knew that he heard you and he would respond to you.
That's I'm finding, through my spiritual journey, which is what the book is about, Finding Reality Beyond Fear. Through my spiritual journey, I discovered that even though I'd gone to church, I didn't have a conscious contact with God. I sat in the pew and looked good. I went to Sunday school, took my children to Sunday school, but I didn't have a connection with the spirit of love in the universe, and that is what made the difference. And everything I've learned from that point on is what my work is about today, helping other people find their inner power, their inner voice, their strength inside, and the truth of who they are. And all my work in counseling and that I help other people with myself is showing them the tools and understanding the dynamics of that we are energy beings releasing our human defects of character. We're spiritual people, and as we release those negativity of our thoughts, words, and actions and emotions or feelings like fear especially, I've become fearless through this process, that we move into a higher place and that we deserve that. That's our birthright. And so we have been actually conditioned in fear through our culture, and I help people to move out of that into life which is in grace. That's what the first part of my book's about, is finding grace. How can you change your circumstances to work for you instead of against you and align with that love in the universe?
That's wonderful. I remember I have a similar path as far as religion. I grew up Catholic, and I wanted so much to connect with God and to have that. Everybody talked about a personal relationship, but I couldn't feel it. I went to Mass, I went to church, I went to the chapel when I was in high school. I prayed, I did everything, but I didn't feel that connection until one day when I was much older, and then I began to feel that, and it's just a completely different feeling. It completely changes your life. I love the part that you talk about being fearless, because I feel that way myself. Once you know that God, the universe, the divine has you, has your back, like some people say, you become fearless, because then you know that you're fully protected. I love that you brought that point forward. So now you talked a little bit about your purpose. What do you believe your main purpose is right now?
Well, I believe I came to help people find their way. I was told, this is in the preface of my, I have an ultimate how-to book called Paradigm Busters, Reveal the Real You. And in the preface of that book, it says, I came to Earth to help people find the answers so they didn't have to be in suffering and misery and illness and sickness anymore. And I do past life regression. I'm very connected to spirit. And God said to me, well, if you're going to go down there, you're going to have to walk through all the situations that people are going through and come out on the other side to show them that they can do it too. And, of course, I said, I don't need to do that because, I know what the answers are. And he says, well, you can't go down unless you walk through it, because they won't communicate with you. You won't be on the same level of consciousness unless you've gone through it and experienced it and come out on the other side. So obviously I came down to do this. My trip of learning from what doesn't work to what does work has been pretty traumatic, a little more than I expected, you might say. But right. I came to help people, and that's what I'm all about today is I've had some marvelous experiences where I'm also a healer, and people who were given diagnosis of death, diagnosis and fatal diagnosis, those people are still living. And, there's so many ways to help people come out of their difficulties. I had a gal who was very deeply into addictions and sex abuse. And, over time she's been able to really get a beautiful life together. So, those are just a couple examples that this path that I'm on today really works. It's so much better a life. I feel like I'm in heaven on earth, and everybody deserves that. God's grace is sufficient, but we've been looking in all the wrong places for love. And love is within our hearts. And when you mentioned feelings, I never had a feeling. I literally didn't, because it wasn't safe to feel through all the sexual abuse I went through. So I had to learn to thaw out from all my past situations, open my heart, which has been a long trip and journey, to actually have feelings and to move them into being functional feelings where I can actually trust my gut, so to speak, and I wasn't able to do that years ago. So, feelings is a flow of energy moving through you, and to have that, those feelings are your feedback. If you're doing God's will, you feel good, and if you don't feel good, you're not doing God's will.
Exactly. Feelings are a guidance system. They guide us, and they're very important. And one of the things people don't realize is when they're taking things like antidepressants and they're on alcohol and other drugs, that numbs your feelings. And so
exactly. That's what
Yes.
Anything toxic, any addiction is a way to numb your feelings and not face the reality of what's going on and what is. And it's a way to run away from reality and run away from life.
Right, exactly. So that goes beautiful into the next question I was going to ask you. What role does authenticity play in your clients, finding that joy and that fulfillment in their life that they're looking for?
Well, that's a really good question, because authenticity to me has to do with honesty and being real. And when you have that, you come into prosperity, abundance, peace, and serenity. And if you don't, you're, of course, not being successful in your life, and you don't have that harmony. So it's all about honesty, self-honesty. The more honest you are with yourself, the more honest, the more sane you are. Dr. Scott Peck, who wrote People of the Lie, I needed to understand. My mother was paranoid schizophrenic, and I wanted to understand her. And when I read his book, he said the degree of lack of self-honesty is the label they give you for mental illness. Well, I right immediately understood what her problem was because of her abusive childhood. And I vowed, I said, I want to be as honest with myself as I possibly can, because I do not want to be mentally ill like my mother. And through self-honesty, I have been actually declared sane from my mental illness. So to me, if you're honest, open-minded, and willing to change, then you are an authentic person. Your inside is what people see, not just the facade outside, but the inside and the outside match.
Right. Very good. I like that. Being honest with yourself, which is not easy to do. I'm sure that you can testify to that. And it's not really taught. I wasn't taught to be honest. In fact, I was almost taught the opposite. It's kind of a strange thing. And we want to fool ourselves because we don't want to see our flaws or what our problems are. But until we look at that really closely and begin to see it, for me, that's when I began to get clarity. And then that gives you the steps of, as you go into your inner self, that gives you the steps of what to do next. So, Marilyn, what is the main message you want to bring to the public?
Well, the main message I have is that in truth there's no incurable conditions, and that we are spiritual beings. And if you address the root cause, why are you fearful? Why are you angry? Why are you having all these negative feelings and resentful about others in your life, etc. If you address the root cause of your problem, and I do past life regressions, I'm internationally board certified for that. When you release the root cause of the situation, then you're free of it. You have no symptoms. You don't have to medicate anything. You've healed the problem from the root, and so then you can start to live your life in that loving grace, be open to the perfect love of God and know you're dearly loved. And you don't have to look to alcohol or pills. You don't have to look to gambling. You don't have to look to overeating or all those other ways to make yourself feel good. It's a natural feeling from doing the right thing.
Okay, and so this healing, this also, you're talking mostly about emotional healing. Does this happen also with physical ailments, that they can be healed through this past life regression?
Well, physical is very much the result of where you are emotionally and consciously inside. I have a chart at the end of my book that shows how your energy moves up through stages into higher consciousness. And as you move out of the negative feelings and emotions into a higher consciousness, you actually become healthy, because it's the separation from God's love that makes you sick. You're at dis-ease when you're not connected to the energy of the universe. It supports us all, that benevolent energy. So if you reconnect to that energy, you're going to get well. And that's what medicine, of course, does not promote, because they wouldn't sell drugs if they did. But, getting healthy physically is all about raising your consciousness into the love of the universe. And also emotional health. On part 3 of my book, I call Finding Sanity in Health. And in that part of the book, it shows how you can raise your consciousness for your emotional health, your physical health, your mental health, and your spiritual health. And I have a very simple, cheap solution of what people could do daily if they really wanted to move into that healthier place. And it's about putting the word love and appreciation on your water. It will actually change the molecular structure of your water. And you're mostly water. So if you are, it's like affirmations, change your mental thinking. The water comes into your system, and if it's been adjusted to the God consciousness, that is what you become. So there's ways, inexpensive ways to do this changing. Besides, counseling is obviously helpful because there's things that we need to learn that I didn't know before anyway. And so there's so many ways to access your consciousness raising and being healthy in all parts of your life. And so I like to help people learn, their cell salt, CELL, to open up the cells of your body, have consciousness. And if they're not open and flowing so that energy can move through you, then, of course, that's another issue you need to address. So there's many ways to get your health back, and it's all about raising out of the fear and coming into a consciousness of unconditional love, which I have discovered is called maturity. You outgrow your childish reactions.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk some more with Marilyn. So just hold on, and we'll be right back. Oh, and if you want to call in and ask questions, we're opening up the lines, and the number is 929-477-3869. That's 929-477-3869, and we'll be right back. We're back on Dare to Be Authentic Radio. Mari Mitchell and our special guest is Marilyn Redmond. She's been talking about how to overcome trauma and addictions and domestic violence. And Marilyn, you were talking about the water. I've been thinking about this while we were on break. Let's go back over what you said about with the water.
Well, I came across some interesting information. I'm a member of the Edgar Cayce Association for Research and Enlightenment. And a lady had a program at her house one day where she put water into glass pitchers. One was red, one was blue, one was green, one was yellow, and one was clear. And she had us taste the water. And the water had different flavor because of the coloring. So that was the first indication that water could affect us through whatever container it's in. And then I came across years ago of a Russian scientist who proved words could change your energy. And his experiments were documented, and that through meditation, affirmations, and language, you could change your consciousness. That's why affirmations are so important, especially in an altered state of meditation. So What I discovered was I came across a movie called What the Bleep Do You Know? And in that movie was Dr. Emoto's. He had worked with frozen water and put it next to very positive, music like Mozart, by Lake Lucerne, very positive, say the word angel, and the crystals of the water would be gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So you put the water next to something like a microwave or words like Satan, the water crystals were absolutely ugly. I won't say how terrible they looked, but there was photographs of them in his book called The Hidden Messages in Water. And he was featured in this movie, and so I came across his book, and I put all these things together that if I put my water right now, my water is in a turquoise bottle because that's a combination of blue and green. And I have on my water bottle, I've kind of raised my consciousness past love and gratitude. So I have God, the word God, on my water bottle facing inward towards the water. And I can tell that it tastes different. I can tell over time it actually has changed how I am inside. I can feel differences because the more I drink this water that is positive energy, and I am positive energy more and more because of it. And it literally is the cheapest way I know to change consciousness is to put God or love and appreciation if you're starting out. Kind of making a huge jump is really kind of too much at once. So I found out that in a class I was taking, a woman was channeling, and in the books that she channeled were about masters of the Far East. And she said, in the book it's also said that God was the highest vibration in our language. So to put that on your water is going to raise that water vibration, and it raises it within you.
Wow, that's amazing. So you actually write the word God on the water bottle, whatever container you have the water in. That's what you're saying.
Well, in my case, I put it on a piece of paper and faced the word inward to the water, and then the paper is held in place with a rubber band.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know why you couldn't write it on the water. My boyfriend has love, appreciation, and gratitude on his water filter pitcher, and I think he wrote it right on the container.
That's what I was thinking, because I have a water filter pitcher as well. Wow, that's pretty cool. I love that. I had heard the thing about the doctor with playing the music and how the crystals showed. I hadn't seen it. I had heard about it, but I hadn't heard anything about putting it into different colors and things like that. That's fascinating, Marilyn. Wow, thank you for sharing that information with us. That's really,
you're so welcome.
Cool.
I've learned a lot in my growing stages.
So you were talking, just as we were finishing up the first section, you were starting to talk about maturity. Would you like to talk about that a little bit? And your newest book, which I think deals with that, Finding Reality Beyond Fear.
Exactly. The last section talks about finding truth. And maturity, when you move into the truth it's knowing the truth will set you free. Just the truth doesn't set you free, but you have to know it, which means put it into your heart. And when you put it into your heart, then you're not coming from your head and your ego anymore. And our culture has conditioned us with such fear that we are victims and have been mind-controlled, and we're easier to be followers that way. And that's what we react from like children in our lives and trying to survive. I'm the great survivor. And I actually won an international writing contest called All-Time Victim. And we become lemmings, and, that's just very childish, immature behavior. So in my Finding Reality Beyond Fear, I go through the stages of bringing you up into a higher consciousness where the truth is that we are energy beings. Tesla said, if you understand energy, vibration, and frequency, you understand the universe. And I have a chart in my book, as I mentioned, that shows the energy in different stages. In the Bible, you would call it Jacob's ladder. And as we move up that ladder of consciousness into a higher consciousness, we become mature. We lose our fear of the future. We lose our fear of the past, our worries, and that people aren't doing what they should be doing, and beating ourselves up, for one thing. We need to find the love within us. And that's our empowerment. When we find that love within, we can grow and create our own reality. So it's a matter of choosing to say, I am the genie in the bottle, Aladdin and his magic lamp. I'm the genie, and I can come out in innocence, which means no condemnation, criticism, or judgment of others. I don't have to judge others. I just have to focus on what's the right thing for me and implement that with courage. I say, God, there isn't anything you and I together can't handle today. So I just move forward in my maturity, and that innocence of not judging somebody else gives you a mature situation of empowerment, that you're not trying to be something for somebody else. You are your own person. And that maturity is often called Christ consciousness. We all can be Christed beings. In the 23rd Psalm, it says that He anoints our head with oil. We are all Christed beings, and that's our journey on life. And this book points out you can do it too. You can move from being a fearful victim into being empowered, into a mature person who always responds in loving solutions to the challenges in life. And when you bring out challenges with loving solutions, that's what comes back to you. The book is based on the universal laws of love from the universe. And what you send out is what comes back. So when you send out love from your heart, then what goes around comes around. You're going to get that love coming back, and that grace can come into your life, and your life moves into harmony and balance.
Wow. Very nice. The part about I've changed a lot through the years, and I was much older, in my 40s and 50s, when I learned a lot of these principles. And staying out of other people's business, like letting people do whatever they do, and while I focus on what I do, it's just so freeing to be able to do that. So much energy, so much of my energy was expended on trying to get somebody to do something or correcting people because they weren't doing it their quote-unquote right way, right? But when you let go of that, wow, there's such freedom. Did you feel that way too, Marilyn?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. My part 2 in my book, I call Finding Balance. And what you were talking about is one of the slogans I have in my book, Live and Let Live. And my book is full of ideas to help in that vein, like easy does it, the first things first, this too shall pass. So it's a matter of finding ways to focus on yourself and do what's right for you and let others have their life.
That's right. And there's such a freedom. If people would try that, if more of the general people would try that I know it's hard because we're not trained that way, unfortunately. I wasn't trained that way. But once you begin to just not even concern yourself, things just go much better. Things are way less stressful. And you live happier, which is the whole point. You have a happier, more fulfilling life. That's great. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about in your new book that you wanted to tell the listener about?
Well, the book takes the first part of my Finding Reality Beyond Fear is my story of moving out of what you were talking about. I don't think very many of us were raised with the idea of how do you live a life of honesty, being healthy, and love yourself. I was not taught to love myself. So the first part of the book I call Finding Grace, and as I moved through the principles of the universe in applying them in my life, I moved into a new life, of course. And then the second part is Finding Balance with the slogans, as we were talking about, of how to keep your life going when you get to this new place. How do you handle that? And part 3 is Finding Sanity and Health. And so many people, if there's alcoholism in people's families or violence or domestic violence, but I was considered bipolar at one time, and all kinds of ways are healed with the love of the universe, and so we don't need drugs, and I talk about how you can do that in the book. And finding the truth is that maturity we come into, and that we have, that's our birthright. So it's a matter of, if you want to, my book's on Amazon.com. I have 10 books on Amazon.com, and I also have a website, angelicasgifts.com. And I have 163 YouTubes, including a variety of lectures and spiritual information. And if you want to check my blog, it's marilynredmond.blogspot.com. And people can Google me because I have a lot of things listed on Google. So there's a lot of ways to reach me. My phone number is 253-845-4907, or email me at marilyn@angelicasgifts.com, MARILYN @Angelicas is my angel that gives me the ability and talents to help people for counseling and art, etc. ANGELICASGIFTS.com. And I also paint angel portraits because I've almost died 12 times and angels have saved me. So I can see your angels and I paint your portraits if you're interested. So right now I'm in the middle of a cat portrait. So anyway, there's lots of things that are going on in my life.
Awesome. And you can also find Marilyn on my website, lifecoachmari.com. That's lifecoachmari.com. And she appears on the radio show page right on top. You can click into her website, and you can also spread the show that we did today. Marilyn, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been lovely having you.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
And thank you for listening in and join us on the next episode of Dare to Be Authentic Radio.
This is Dare to Be Authentic Talk Radio Worldwide with relationship coach, life coach, and author Mari Mitchell. Broadcasting live from Southern California.